Each autumn, a remarkable migration takes place. Thousands of whooper swans converge on one spot. They come from breeding grounds in the far north to spend the winter near the Three Gates Gorge in central China. This unique wetland environment near the Yellow River will be their winter home. The Yellow River is the second longest river in Asia. Near its midpoint is a remarkable man-made wetland. Each winter, it attracts upwards of 10,000 swans. Although winters are cold on the Swan Lake, it's not nearly as cold as the swans' breeding grounds in the far north. But even now, the swans are practicing flight every day in preparation for the long flight home. Of the thousands of swans on the lake, one is unique. She won't make the long journey. Sanmenxia has a broken wing. She cannot fly. So the Swan Lake is her only home. Twice each year, swans undertake a remarkable journey. To escape the rigors of winter, they fly south each autumn. In the spring, they fly back to their breeding grounds in the north. It's spring on the Swan Lake. Most swans have only one thing on their mind. Sanmenxia can only watch as healthy swans begin their arduous annual adventure. Left behind, Sanmenxia's life will be very different on a lake now denuded of swans. Of course, she won't be entirely alone. A few other swans unable to make the journey will also stay behind. Mostly, they're old or infirm. And many other kinds of waterfowl enjoy their summers on the Swan Lake as well. Over 200 species of birds make the Wetland Nature Reserve their home. Although the swans have left the lake, other birds thrive here. While whooper swans breed in the north, many other birds mate in the nature reserve. The Swan Lake is a man-made lake in central China. Here, swans and people live in close proximity. Although born elsewhere, thousands of whooper swans have colonized the lake and its wetlands. Sanmenxia is not the only swan on the lake. Although most able-bodied swans migrate out each spring, old and infirm swans are left behind. One takes a special interest in Sanmenxia. His courtship is cautious and slow. Spring is a special time at the Wetland Reserve. Waterfowl hunt and swim as usual, but there is time for other activity as well. The Wetland Reserve is more than just a big lake. It has several micro-habitats. Grey herons are not nature's best architects. They build their nests in precarious places. New nests are comparatively rare. More often, old nests are patched and recycled. The nests are simply constructed. They have a haphazard, ramshackle look about them. They meet the requirements of flying birds, but can fail young chicks. Meixia's suitor also has nesting on his mind. He gently continues his courtship. Meixia and her suitor pair up. Most whooper swans mate for life, but Meixia and her suitor's partners abandoned them when they couldn't join the annual migration. Although there are no other swans to compete with at this time of year, Meixia and her new partner find a quiet place to start their life together. It's at Canglong, Blue Dragon Lake. The water is clean and there's abundant food. As the biggest birds in this part of the wetland reserve, Meixia and her mate can lord it over their neighbours. The couple have a regal presence. Meixia is the queen of all that she can see. Before Meixia and her mate can even find a spot on which to build their nest, their neighbour has a head start on them. This little grebe's nest is well concealed from the prying eyes of predators. The leaf above hides the nest and its precious contents from magpies and other egg-eaters and chick snatchers. And unlike swans' nests, it is not built on land. It's a floating nest, a mini raft tethered to a lotus stalk. The nest floats up and down as the water level in the reservoir changes. The fragile nest requires constant attention. Running repairs are made, even while incubating. Although the nest is well hidden, the adults have a plan B. At the first sign of danger, the adults quickly cover the eggs with plant debris and then fly or swim away, not to save themselves, but to lure the predator away from the nest. Whooper swans have a 35-day incubation period. While the female sits on the eggs, her mate stays close by, guarding both them and her. Whooper swans have never before bred on the Swan Lake. The usual breeding grounds are in Xinjiang, Mongolia, and Siberia. It is Meixia's and her mate's infirmities that keep them here. Their urge to mate will produce two kinds of miracles. There are huge reed beds at the wetland reserve. They're an important source of food for the whooper swans. But for the oriental reed warbler, reeds are their home, and they provide vital camouflage for their fragile nests. In April, migrating whooper swans arrive at their breeding place. This one is in Xinjiang. For much of the year, whooper swans are gregarious birds that gather in huge flocks. But during the breeding period, they separate. Each couple jealously guards its own territory. Swans build their nests weeks before they lay their eggs. Unlike ducks, male swans help in the construction. A typical clutch contains 4 to 7 eggs. Occasionally, there may be as many as 12. The individual eggs are laid over several days. Incubation doesn't start until all the eggs have been laid. The result is that no matter when they were laid, all the eggs hatch around the same time. Mothers rotate each egg around 5 times each day. When nesting, swans prefer isolation. Nesting in shallow water keeps predators at bay. The rich environment supports many waterfowl. Although it's the summer home of many thousands of migrating birds, the Xinjiang wetlands are so huge that individual birds and their families seem to get lost in it. At the Yellow River Wetlands Reserve, history is being made. Meixia is now a proud mother. This is the first case of whooper swans breeding on the Swan Lake. Because healthy swans fly north to breed, ornithologists were surprised that Meixia was able even to find a mate on the lake. That they were then able to produce a family was truly remarkable. The challenge now is to keep her family alive. Although cygnets can swim virtually from birth, they have to be taught how to feed themselves. They have two teachers. Unlike many other kinds of waterfowl, whooper swans are conscientious parents. Both parents take an active role in raising their family. When there's a large brood of young cygnets, the parents divide them into two groups. But being a conscientious parent does not guarantee that all the babies will survive. Good parents must constantly be on guard. The vast Sanmenxia wetlands contain many microhabitats. Each provides its own challenge. It's not easy being a baby bird, particularly when your home is on a sheer cliff. While its parents are off foraging for food, a heron chick wanders away from its nest. This heron chick's first steps will be its last. Its parent can do nothing to stop the inevitable disaster. There's nothing it can do to save its child. Mother Nature can be cruel. One small misstep can snuff out life forever. Although there are natural dangers in this habitat, the Yellow River Wetlands Nature Reserve and its Swan Lake are like paradise when compared with other breeding places. It has abundant food and few natural predators. Most importantly, the local government protects the swans from the most dangerous predator of all, man. Swans eat plants both above and below the surface of the water. Cygnets need to be taught how to forage and feed themselves. As they grow, the cygnets learn by example. Tight formations of swan families are aesthetically pleasing. They also serve an important purpose. While predatory birds won't attack an adult swan, young cygnets are fair game. Watchful parents deter predators who might otherwise make a meal of their young. Herons eat meat. They hunt both while wading and while on the wing. When the nest is full of hungry children, a heron's life is an endless cycle of hunting. They commute between the lake and their cliffside nests, bringing fish and small aquatic animals back to feed their young. The oriental reed warbler's feeding technique is more straightforward. Keeping the nest clean reduces disease and makes a nest harder for predators to find. When they're not bringing food to the nest, warblers are removing feces from it. Swans don't have to be fastidious about keeping their nests clean. This may be because nests are quickly abandoned. Cygnets take to the water when very young. Whooper swans usually mate for life. The years spent together enable them to build up their parenting skills. Both Meixia and her mate were abandoned when they were unable to migrate north. But previously, they were both experienced parents. This is a huge benefit to their new family together. Parenting is an exhausting business, especially when your children are almost as large as yourself. As the nestlings grow, competition for both food and space grows. Exhausted parents are trapped in an endless loop of hunting for food on the lake and bringing it back to their voracious children. Each year, Sanmenxia swans fly north to their breeding grounds. In Xinjiang province, huge natural wetland reserves provide a summer home not only for the swans, but for other migratory aquatic birds as well. Black-headed gulls, ducks, geese, pochads, there's plenty of room for all of them. The ample space here provides a tranquil environment for swans to raise their young. Swans require a lot of space during the breeding season. When their cygnets are young, they are fiercely territorial. Xinjiang's wide open spaces enable them to raise their young without hindrance. Although there is plenty of space in the Sanmenxia Wetland Reserve, it can be less comfortable than Xinjiang. Summer temperatures at Sanmenxia can reach 39 degrees. Perhaps this explains why those swans that are able to fly north make the arduous journey. In Sanmenxia, Mei Xia's family escapes the worst heat of the day by feeding very early in the morning. They spend the hottest part of the day in the shade of the reed beds. Cygnets grow quickly. In just 6 months, they reach near adult size. However, it will take another year until their plumage turns white. The Sanmenxia wetlands are a varied habitat. They're directly affected by the nearby dam. Activity at the dam affects the water level of the surrounding wetlands. Newly exposed mud banks are exploited by creatures great and small. When water is released from the reservoir, new land is revealed, and migratory birds aren't the only creatures to take advantage of it. Opportunistic farmers also benefit from the newly exposed soil. They don't need fertilizer when each new year brings rich new mud. The narrow band between the water and the land is one of the wetland's most biodiverse zones. The accumulation of silt creates temporary islands and beaches. The water level affects feeding patterns. Tender new shoots appear on land, and the drop in the water level makes underwater plants more accessible. Over 200 different species of birds have colonized the Sanmenxia wetlands. They range in size from tiny warblers and kingfishers to large herons, geese, and swans. The different types of birds have different feeding patterns. Swans typically gorge on aquatic plants. Wading birds feast on the flesh of fish, amphibians, and crustaceans. Although most aquatic birds are omnivores that eat both meat and plants, the different species have their own dietary preferences. Some, like swans, have a preference for plants. Others, like kingfishers and herons, have a preference for aquatic animals. The wetlands are a rich environment. There's more than enough food for them all. Life for Meixia and her family is easy. With only old and infirm swans on the lake, there's little competition in their lives. For young swans, the most important thing in life is their next meal. It's only 6 months between their birth and the time they must begin their first migration. They rapidly bulk up in size, but have yet to learn how to use their wings. Occasionally, cygnets come up with more than they can chew. Fish are a minor part of the swan's diet. Swans don't have teeth, which makes catching fish challenging. The swan's main food is plants, but small fish are fair game. Much of the swan's diet comes from grazing. They graze on land, on plants on the water's surface, and on plants under the water. One fish has a lucky escape when a heron wisely decides it's bitten off more than it can chew. Young loons hitch a ride on their mother's back. Their father has ambitious ideas about what they can eat. He's a good provider and he means well, but his eyes are bigger than their stomachs. Swans do not dive underwater. Instead, they use their feet to churn up the mud on the shallow lake bottom. This stirs up tasty morsels. Swans also use their beaks to dig in the soft lake bed. Their long necks enable them to reach plants half a metre or more below the water's surface. There's a storm brewing. Swans don't pay attention to small birds, but when big birds invade their territory, it's another story. It's unlikely that Meixia has ever seen a black swan. Black swans are rare. They're not native to China. On Swan Lake, whooper swans outnumber black swans 1,000 to 1. But because they're not a native species, black swans are not protected in China. Meixia may look nonchalant, but she's really sizing up the opposition. While Meixia plans her attack, her mate can't wait. Although the odds are 5 to 2 against him, he's in full attack mode. The territorial father tries to drive off the intruders. Meixia and her mate enjoy a victory dance after the first battle. But there are more to come. The elegant curve of a swan's neck belies their strength. There are stories of humans having their arm broken after a powerful strike by a swan. Perhaps it was in a fight like this that Meixia damaged her wing. It's late summer in the Sanmenxia Wetlands. Meixia's children are almost fully grown. But big changes are just around the corner. Winter is coming, and it will bring new intruders. For a short time more, Meixia's family still rule the Swan Lake. But that's about to change. It's time for the young herons to leave their nest. The young herons have outgrown their nest and outgrown the ability of their parents to feed them. It's time for them to fly. But one is reluctant to do so. It takes great confidence or a leap of faith to make your first flight. Get it wrong and there will be no second chance. Before cygnets fly, they preen. Preening isn't just for looks. It's an essential pre-flight activity. Feathers must be properly aligned for efficient flight. With as many as 20,000 feathers, it's no surprise that swans spend almost as much time preening as they do eating. Today is a special day. Meixia's children have never flown, but today they will learn how. The cygnets don't notice their parents' unusual behavior. Instead of closely guarding them, their parents have swum away. The cygnets have never been this far from their parents. This unusual behavior flusters the cygnets. Usually they're never further than a shadow's length away from their parents. But now the gap is huge. Meixia can't fly, but she can mime what to do. It's a big moment. Meixia's attentive children copy their mother's behavior and they take to the air. Although they've never seen their mother fly, Meixia cygnets immediately command the sky. It's a short flight for now, but there will be longer flights to come. Summer turns to autumn. Soon the farmers will bring in their crops, and soon thousands of swans will begin their migration from their northern breeding grounds. In a few weeks' time, they will descend on Sanmenxia. The autumn migration starts slowly in Xinjiang. Widely dispersed families leave the safety of Xinjiang for the security of Sanmenxia. Although only 6 months old, cygnets born in Xinjiang are now large enough and strong enough to make the long journey to Sanmenxia. Thousands of birds make the annual migration. They come to Sanmenxia to escape the worst of the winter weather and to have a more secure source of food. The family is the basic unit of migration, but it's common for several families, sometimes 10 or more, to fly together. Autumn in Sanmenxia sees the arrival of the northern migrants. Although each species flies in separate groups, their destination is the same. Meixia's family has attracted the attention of scientists. In September, her mate and children were fitted with neck bands. Now they can be studied and tracked more easily. Only Meixia herself was left without a band. There are other changes as well. The invading black swans occupy places ignored by whooper swans. Black swans have an unusual family structure. It's common for 3 adults to share parenting. Having 3 parents means that the nest is never left without a defender. 2 males will form a family with 1 female. They build a second nest nearby. Black swans are the only type of swan that can lay 2 clutches of eggs in the same year. And unlike other swans, they can lay eggs at any time of year. While one male incubates the first clutch, the female can lay more eggs. Autumn at the Sanmenxia Reservoir is a time of seasonal change. There are dark days ahead. Autumn rains replenish the reservoir. But the autumn is a time of tragedy for Meixia and her family. Not long after he was branded, Meixia's mate died. Either his age or ill health had stopped him from making the annual migration. Left behind at Sanmenxia, he started a new family with Meixia. But now the stout defender of that new family was dead. Meixia's mate took primary responsibility for cygnets number 59, 60 and 61. But instead of returning to Meixia's supervision, the almost fully grown cygnets strike out on their own. They have no way of knowing that an even bigger change is coming. Unknown to them, migrants from the north are winging their way to Sanmenxia. When they arrive, the cygnets' lives will be turned upside down. Each autumn, the dam gates are closed. Once the harvest is gathered, rising water covers the former mudflats and the surrounding land. When full, the reservoir has a surface area of over 28,000 hectares. They're a crucial winter habitat for the migrating birds. The migration from Xinjiang to Sanmenxia takes several weeks. Soon, the wetlands will be teeming with swans. Whooper swans are among the heaviest of all migrating birds, so they don't undertake such a colossal journey lightly. The crossing isn't done in a single flight. There are several rest and refueling stops along the way. It was perhaps on one such stop that the swans first discovered the man-made reservoir. The Sanmenxia Wetlands are a consequence of the construction of the nearby dam. It was designed to control flooding and generate electricity. The opportunistic colonization of the reservoir by migrating waterfowl was an unexpected bonus, both for the birds and for people who love wildlife. By the time the autumn migration is complete, an estimated 10,000 whooper swans will descend on the Sanmenxia Reservoir and wetlands. It will be their home for the next 5 months. Swans bred in the vast open spaces of Xinjiang seem equally at home living near a big city. The Sanmenxia Wetlands are a consequence of the construction of the first dam across the Yellow River. The multi-purpose dam was built in the late 1950s, and it became an icon of socialist engineering. Thousands of workers came from all over the country to build the dam. They completed it in record time. The dormitory town that was built for them is the kernel from which the thriving modern city of Sanmenxia grew. Among the biggest beneficiaries of the dam are the wildfowl that colonize the new wetlands and the city that is their home. Sanmenxia is a thriving, vibrant, modern city. It has a symbiotic relationship with its annual visitors. Sanmenxia is proud of its identity as the City of Swans. It's built a whole industry around them. Even in the heart of the city, you're never far from swans. Monumental architecture to bus stops and even humble rubbish bins, everything gets a swan-themed makeover. The city controls access to its biggest attraction. Strict regulations protect the swans. Tourists can look at the swans, but not disturb them. Severe penalties extend even to making loud noises when near the swans. The migrants flew from Sanmenxia to Xinjiang last spring. Since then, Meixia and her mate had no rivals on the lake. The return of the migrants upsets that equation. The death of her mate means that Meixia has lost the support of a battle-hardened companion. She will have to face the challenges of the invaders on her own. A large family has invaded Meixia's territory. Although she's now a single parent, she doesn't shirk her duty. Meixia signals her intention. A cygnet has Mei's back. She attacks. The battle of supremacy for this corner of the lake is joined. She targets the other family, repeatedly trying to drive them off. After an initial success, she crows victory to her own cygnets and to confuse her enemies. But while she wins this battle, the war has only just begun. The invading swans get out of her line of attack, but they don't flee the territory. Meixia puts in a spirited defense of her territory, joining the battle time after time. But she's alone. Her signet shows willingness, but is too young to know how to fight. Meixia is fighting a losing battle. One swan can't drive off whole families of intruders. She continues to defend her territory, but the end is in sight. The series of skirmishes takes a lot out of her. She can't win on her own. One last victory gives her something to crow about, but eventually it will be Meixia who will move to a less desirable part of the lake. What was a minor diversion for the spoonbills is an important moment for Meixia. These invaders leave the scene of battle. But with more migrants returning every day, Meixia will inevitably meet a foe she cannot beat. There are already 3 families contending for the territory. The swans arriving from Xinjiang don't know that Meixia has prior claim on it, and they're prepared to fight for it. Meixia is already disabled, and she's on her own. She can't compete with 2 able-bodied families of intruders. Swan Lake is home to many kinds of birds. Although swans compete with other swans, they ignore smaller birds. Crested grebes, pochards and ducks go about their lives without hindrance. But at Meixia's end of the lake, the swans slug it out. In the end, the intruding swans wilt in front of Meixia's spirited defence. They abandon the area. A victory celebration is in order, but with no partner to share it with, the celebration is hollow. For a brief time, however, tranquility returns to Meixia's part of the lake. Meixia's children were too young to play a part in the territorial battles. But for at least one more day, they own this corner of paradise. Sanmenxia is a good place for swans to spend the winter. Although the wetlands are comparatively new, each year they attract ever larger numbers of birds. Swans don't have fixed migration patterns. They are opportunistic migrants, always on the lookout for a good place to spend the winter. They need a place where there's food. By early winter, most of the migratory birds have arrived. Some of them gather on the calm backwaters of the Yellow River itself and in the reed beds on the lake. To the chagrin of the nearby farmers, the fields around the wetland reserve also attract them. Young shoots supplement the swans' main diet. When they can't graze plants on the lake bed, whooper swans graze in farmers' fields. There are a lot of swans, and they can eat a lot of crops. The local government reimburses farmers for damage to their crops so that feathers won't be ruffled. Cynics might take issue with Sanmenxia's self-proclaimed title of Swan City, until, that is, they try counting the birds. Grazing the lake bed is called dabbing. Keeping one leg close to the body prevents heat loss, and so does preening. Properly aligned feathers are crucial both to flying and heat conservation. Lotus plants are a mainstay of the swan's diet. It seems that no matter what the season, swans can find some part of the plant to eat. In spring and summer, the swans eat lotus flowers and leaves. In winter, they tear strips off the lotus stalks and dab for roots. Meixia still looks after 3 of her children. When another swan crashes in, it signals yet more battles may begin. But Meixia does not take up the challenge. She's ready to concede territory to the intruders. Instead, she gathers her children to move to a less desirable part of the lake. For the other birds, life goes on as normal. Black swans breed all year round, but mortality rates for juveniles are high if they lay their eggs too late in the season. Winter comes to the Sanmenxia Wetlands. Just because it's the winter home of the whooper swans, it doesn't mean they escape the snow. Arctic temperatures aren't a big problem for swans, but frozen lakes are. Just walking on ice can be fatal. As temperatures drop, a crust of ice forms on the water. If there's no current, the shallow water of the swan's feeding zone freezes first, denying them access to food. Winter at the Wetland Wildlife Reserve has an austere beauty. To conserve heat, local people build underground. Swans aren't so lucky. Bird flu is taken seriously in China. The disease can jump from wild birds to farmed birds to humans. While human deaths are rare, the disease can have serious economic consequences. Although most deaths at the Swan Lake are simply age and weather related, the authorities take no chances. Scientists study and record the death of every swan on the Swan Lake. When ice blocks grazing on aquatic plants, swans raid the nearby farms. The advantages of living at Sanmenxia outweigh the disadvantages. At least that is, until spring. However, the biggest reason the Sanmenxia wetland is so popular with migrating swans is because the city deliberately feeds them. Grain is spread not to grow crops, but to grow tourists. Keeping the swans well fed keeps the swans on Swan Lake and keeps the tourists happy. In fact, the swans are spoiled for choice. The city provides grain for the swans to eat, and it compensates farmers for the food the swans steal from their fields. There's even a little left over for the other birds. The progression of the season rolls on. Winter gives way to spring. Migrating birds feel the call of their breeding grounds. Sanmenxia provided a refuge for winter, but another migration season is about to begin. The swans will soon fly back to their northern breeding grounds. Mei Xia and her remaining cygnets are in the crowd. She can never leave the lake, but will her children join the migration? She cared for her children well. They're strong and fit. But Sanmenxia is the only place they've ever known. Will they stay with their mother, or will the call of migration be too strong to resist? Will it be family or flight? Sanmenxia has much to offer in the summer. There's plenty of food. The only thing missing are able-bodied mates. Swans that stay will not be able to find a mate. It's not only swans that migrate. Other birds also fly to the northern breeding grounds. Each group is composed of several families of the same species. Lacking a father to lead him, 60 hasn't yet departed. Swans normally migrate in family groups. Lacking a father and with a mother unable to fly, he doesn't know who to follow. As the last birds prepare to leave the lake, he must make a decision. In the end, the urge to migrate is too strong to resist. He leaves Sanmenxia and his mother behind. Magpies are one of the most intelligent of all non-human animals, but they have a mixed reputation. In Europe, they're known as thieves and tricksters. In China, they're known as birds of joy, but they certainly don't bring joy to this heron. Magpies are omnivores, and they have a taste for eggs. The black swans were good parents. They won't migrate. Their cygnets are too small. In Australia, black swans don't migrate at all. The migration period has already begun. Each day there are fewer swans on the lake. The pressure on Meixia's children grows. Soon, they will be the last swans on the lake. Their regal looks give swans a serene bearing, but who can tell what's seething under the surface? Although Meixia can't migrate, she must know it's time for her children to fly. Already, Meixia has only sporadic contact with the three cygnets raised by her mate, so she works hard to keep 55, 56 and 57 close to her. Meixia is fighting a losing battle. Mother Nature holds all the cards. Biological forces trump mother love. There's no way she can stop her family from shredding. She faces a summer as the last whooper swan on the lake. Swans are not the only birds that migrate in large groups. Poachards follow the same pattern. Large numbers gather and then fly off together. Species by species, the winter migrants leave the Swan Lake to return to their northern breeding grounds. Even black swans that have escaped farmers' captivity don't migrate. Perhaps this confuses number 61. Number 61 was raised by Meixia's mate. Now, he's come back. His old home territory was near here. Perhaps he's looking for his mother. With a decreasing number of swans on the lake, she should be easy to find. But the lake is large. He stays near his former home. Around him, the springtime migration continues. He must make a decision. The blue collar shows that 61 is at last on his way. He'll fly fast to catch up with the migrating group. All 6 of Meixia's children have begun their journey. Over the next few weeks, each one will fly over 1,000 kilometers to reach the summer breeding ground in Xinjiang. Other whooping swans will migrate to breeding grounds in Mongolia and Siberia, and on the way, some may spot a new lake to colonize. Meixia's broken wing means that she isn't going anywhere. The last member of her family on Swan Lake, it will be 7 months for the wheel of life to turn and the return migration to begin. Until then, she will be alone.